Hello, Jan Coverstone again, talking about training our spirit. I want to review a few things today and maybe show you how some things that you might not think relate actually are very much related. When we're training our spirit, I think it's something that we've all done. We all do it. I think our life situations and our spirit is active in our lives, whether we realize it or not. And that's especially true in judging. Yes, I know. We're not supposed to judge. We make good judgments. Christ said he makes righteous judgments, and so should we. But when we have innate prejudices, different things in our lives that we were maybe brought up with or that were programmed into us, we sometimes maybe without us even knowing it, or we've been involved in fellowships or different organizations that tend to not like certain things about people. Like if you look at me right now, I felt I needed to let my hair grow and my beard a little bit. I could go into some places and I would be judged for that. Do they see my heart? Do they know what God's doing in my life? Or is it just what they perceive should be? And it's trying to make someone agree to your standard that really comes into this judgmental picture. But I think we've all been judged at one time or another. And it never feels real good. But how do we know that we were being judged? If someone's actually speaking against you or doing something along those lines, it's easy to see that you're being judged. What about the times when you just feel like you're not accepted? And you're usually not accepted, or you feel like you're not worthy of some of these other people? It's because of judgment. And when someone thinks about something or has prejudices, preconceived ideas, if it's in their mind long enough, it'll settle into their spirit. And what you're feeling is what's in their spirit. It's not the fact that they're thinking about it. You can actually sense from your spirit what they are feeling. Now, this isn't mystical. We're created that way. You know, Christ knew their thoughts. He perceived in his spirit. You know, I've taught martial arts and I've taught women's self-defense and done a lot of research. And one of the research papers that I was reading said that 85% of women in this one survey, after being sexually assaulted, said they felt like something wasn't right. Their spirit could sense what another person's intentions were, but they didn't listen to it. And we're coming into the last days, or in the last days right now, and our spirit has to be sensitive and we have to listen to it. That's my opinion. I don't like using words like you have to, but I think it's going to be a necessity in these last days for us to really understand that our spirit has been trained by circumstances and events in our lives. Just like all the women that said they just had a feeling something wasn't right, but they were either talked out of it or ignored it in some way. I think the situation in the world is grave enough that we cannot ignore or be talked out of what our spirit is telling us. And it's the same way with fellowship. Fellowship is not socializing, in my opinion. It is actually spirit to spirit ministry. I've been around people who their very presence made me feel peaceful or joyful. And sometimes you meet someone and you know that you've known them. You feel like you've known them for a long time. How does that happen? Because you're comfortable in your spirit with them. See, our spirit's been teaching us these things as we go along, but I think for a lot of people, it's never been vocalized or categorized in such a way that they can even understand that that's really what's going on. It's not something that's in your mind, it's something in your spirit, because first and foremost, we're created spirit beings. We have a spirit which relates to God. We have a soul that relates to this world and to God. And our physical body is limited here on earth. But mostly we are created to be a spirit being, and we need to relate to one another on a spirit level because all the things of God are spiritually discerned. which is why I believe that Satan cannot necessarily infiltrate your spirit in such a way that he can just make you do things from your spirit. He has to convince us through our mind, and then our mind has to convince our spirit. Otherwise, I believe that he could have, if he had that capacity, he could have just imparted into Eve's spirit this sense of rebellion and doing things, but he couldn't do that. He had to go through the mind. His tactics have not changed. So we need to be really cautious of our thoughts, because our thoughts will affect our spirits eventually. Maybe not just a passing thought, but whatever we really think upon and meditate on. That's why it says meditate on the Word of God, because that's also going to affect your spirit. In the same way, that's how bitterness gets started. When we ruminate and think about all the bitterness, or somebody did this and it was just so terrible, it's going to sink into our spirit, and it's going to affect how we relate to other people. And I know some of this is review, but I just wanted to really emphasize this, that we've had situations where that our spirit's been teaching us things. I'm not sure how many people have really paid attention to that. So fellowship is spirit to spirit ministry. When we have fellowship with God, his spirit always ministers to our spirit. You cannot have fellowship with God without your spirit being ministered to. And it should be the same way when we have fellowship with one another. Our spirits are designed to interact, interrelate, minister to, and be ministered from other people's spirits. I remember one day when I did not want to be in the ecclesia that I have, and a lady came in, and I knew that when she came in, I would gather strength from her. But I also knew that everything that had happened that morning, it was just revealed to me. But I literally did not want to be there, and was really on the verge of walking away from ministry. She came in, and I gathered strength from that, from her presence, from her spirit. And that just fascinated me, because it was revealed to me that I was going to gather strength from her spirit. And it came time to bring forth a message or do some teaching. I was okay. I went from being despondent, ready to walk away, not even wanting to be there, to just being okay. How is that possible? And do we have that capacity? Yes, I believe we do. I don't think it was an accident when Mary went to visit Elizabeth, and she said the babe in her womb leaped for joy, because there was a spirit-to-spirit connection. So how many people do we give joy jumps to in their spirit when they see us? I would like to be able to give joy jumps to more people, allow my spirit to minister to their spirit, because we are these spiritual beings. So we can't really judge, because that judgment is sensed on a spirit level. Fellowship is on a spirit level. Knowing and feeling uncomfortable about things is on a spirit level, which, people, I don't really believe that we have a subconscious mind. I think what psychiatrists and psychology and that field of study portrays as a subconscious mind is really our spirit. Our spirit wants to guide us into the truth, into the relationship with the Lord. And along those lines, how many of the things that we think about are really on a spirit level rather than an emotional or intellectual level? Grace is a spiritual quantity in our spirit. We don't get grace by thinking about it or intellectualizing about it. We receive grace in our spirit. Romans 5:5 says that the Holy Spirit has shed the love of God abroad in our hearts or our spirits. Love is a spirit quality, not a physical quality, not an intellectual quality. True love, first and foremost, is a spirit quality. When we understand those things, we can start seeing how much our lives are affected by other people's spirits and their judgment or lack of, let's just say, purity in their spirit. Been around people that just make you feel uncomfortable, like they want to do you some harm in some way. Pay attention to those things. Interestingly enough, I don't believe AIs will ever have a spirit. If you're sensitive, you will know things that most people won't be able to figure out because your spirit's going to be sensitive. But love, that was just a bonus. I don't know why that just happened to come out, but love and grace, those are spiritual qualities. Peace is a quality of your spirit, which is why it can be the peace that passes understanding, because it comes from deep within, from our spirit, and not because we have solved the crisis or done anything else. Sometimes we can have the peace that passes understanding, and it's not the absence of conflict, it's the presence of the Lord and the presence of his peace, which is one of his characteristics and should also be a fruit of our spirit. So those things are spirit qualities. Do we allow those to grow, or do we allow our mind to override what our spirit wants and feels? I think we've all done it at different times. But I think in these last days, our spirit has to become more sensitive. We have to have more love. We have to have more peace. We have to have more grace. We have to have a purity in our spirit. And a lot of people have wounds in their spirit. You can read in Proverbs about the things that wound the spirit, arrows and words and all of these things. And if you're a person listening to me today and you know that there's been hurt in your life, I just speak healing to all those wounds in your spirit so that we can truly become who we were created to be. And I'm not sure that we become who we were created to be as long as we have wounds in our spirit that take away the purity and the peace that our spirit is supposed to have. Which brings up another interesting aspect, because I want to talk a little bit more about peace, because Jesus told the disciples when they went out 2 by 2 to speak peace to whatever dwelling they were going to stay at. And if their peace remained, then they should remain there. But if their peace returned to them, shake the dust off your feet and move on. I think we need to, Jesus spoke peace to the storms. I think we can do the same things, especially the storms in our own life. First thing, and Jesus said in John 14, my peace I give you, not as the world gives, give I unto you. His first words to the disciples or apostles after his resurrection was, peace be to you. There's a lot of scriptures that talk about living peaceably with all men. Let the peace of God rule in your hearts. And, when we don't be anxious and don't worry, as it says in Philippians, but bring all things before the Lord with prayer and thanksgiving, and the peace of God can guard our hearts or our spirits. And also the peace of God is to help us preserve our soul blameless, spirit, soul, and body blameless unto the coming of the Lord. That's in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. So peace should be a very strong element in our spirit because it's godly. We respond differently when we're peaceful. And I know I've spoken about some of this before, but just want to reemphasize. We have the capacity to maintain peace in our spirit, and we need to do so, because anything else is going to lead us to think differently and act differently. And we also need to have an abundance of grace. Now, God gives grace to the humble, I find out maybe I'm not humble enough because I still have to go to the throne room and receive grace and strap it to me, because the word helps literally refers to straps and cables. So think about those things. I pray and speak healing into everyone's spirit that hears this message, that we can truly understand how much we need our spirit. And we've already had circumstances and events in our lives which were training our spirit. We just need to pay more attention, develop a greater sensitivity. Blessings to all.